Afternoon and welcome to the Power of Connection 2021 LGBTQ Business Summit, presented by the Out Georgia Business Alliance. My name is Gabrielle Claiborne and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am the co-founder and CEO of Transformation Journeys Worldwide, an inclusion, training, and consulting firm with a transgender focus. I serve as the board secretary and inclusion chair of the Out Georgia Business Alliance, and I help lead our TGNC 360 initiative, aiming to advance economic equity for Georgia's trans, gender nonconforming, and non-binary residents on their employment and entrepreneurship journeys. It is my distinct honor to welcome our special guest, the incomparable Angelica Ross. A little bit about Angelica. From the boardroom to film and TV sets to Capitol Hill, Angelica Ross is a leading figure of success and strength in the movement for trans and racial equality. A series regular on the 9th season of Ryan Murphy's FX hit American Horror Story 1984, and confirmed to return for the currently untitled Season 10, Angelica is blazing a trail, kicking open doors, and building her own table with ample open seats. Angelica's acting breakthrough came in the form of Ryan Murphy's award-winning FX hit Pose, which follows New York City's Black and Latino LGBTQ and gender nonconforming ballroom culture scene in the 80s and early 90s. Making TV history, the show features the largest transgender cast ever for a scripted series. Vanity Fair raved that Angelica Ross steals many of her screens as Candy as the brashest member of House of Abundance. Ms. Ross also works behind the camera. She executive produced and appeared in the Daytime Emmy-nominated web series King Esther and in the short film Missed Connections, which went on to be an official selection at the Outfest LGBTQ Film Festival and the LA Film International Film Festival and the Baltimore International Black Film Festival. Angelica Ross is also the president of Miss Ross, Inc. and founder of TransTech Social Enterprises, a program that helps people lift themselves out of poverty through technical training, digital work creating a social impact, and bringing economic empowerment to marginalized communities. Welcome, Angelica.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that full introduction. Oh my goodness, there's so much in there to talk about. And stuff changes so fast in Ryan Murphy's world that when the time I think we gave the bio, we didn't even know what the title of the 10th season was going to be, but now we know it's going to be AHS Double Feature. So can't wait for that to come out in August.
Amazing, and I just love the way you show up in the world, and I am so honored to be speaking with you today. And I wanted to start by thanking you for your fierce visibility. And speaking of your fierce visibility, we all know and love your character, Candy Veracity, from Pose and your work on American Horror Story. And we would love for you to share a little bit more about your journey leading up to your big acting break. So can you share a little bit of that with us today?
Absolutely. Yeah. What a lot of people may not have known about me in the beginning was that I've been acting since diapers. It's one of those things that I have a saying. I always say that my biggest dream for the trans community is that we can put down our armor and return to our field of dreams, to the things that we wanted to do before we had to sort of fight for our right to exist. For me, that was being in drama class, every musical theater performance. I was in, swing choir, jazz choir, the chorale, and singing in Italian. I was in the church choir. I did community theater for about 12 years. Before I started actually acting in commercials and doing extra work on shows like CSI Miami and South Beach, which is a short-lived show that was executive produced by Jennifer Lopez. So I've been around for a really long time, but in the beginning, my acting career was stealth, meaning folks did not know that I was actually trans when I was acting. So much so that there was a movie that I was in that was an Italian film called Natale a Miami, which was Christmas in Miami. And there was a scene where they had like a bunch of trans women and the main guys, you know, go to a club and meet these trans women. It was, of course, a gag because things were problematic back then, especially in the beginning. But what was funny was that all the girls they had cast for the trans girls were actually cis women with a little more surgery, I think, you know, in the Miami area. So they were playing them off as trans women, but it was only known between me and the director that I was trans. And so I knew that my career, me being stealth, had a cost to my career. If I couldn't live and be fully authentic in these roles, you know, as an actor, you need to be able to let go of things. And it was hard for me to let go if I was thinking about, can the director see my Adam's apple? Do I got some hair on my lip today? Like, what's going on? Like, you know, is my voice too low? Can I scream? Like, I just was always in my head, as we are sometimes, you know, as trans folks. But it wasn't until I had my role as Paige, was it Paige Jones? I think her last name was, but I know her first name was Paige. But in the web series, the Emmy-nominated web series, Her Story, where I got to play a trans woman as a trans actor. It was written by a trans woman and a cis pansexual white woman, and as well as directed by a Navajo trans woman. So it was like directed, written, and acted by trans women, and that got notice, or I should say Hollywood took notice of that performance and of that show. And I really believe that helped. That was like the biggest demo reel that I could have for Hollywood. Because after that, then I got a job being Laverne Cox's best friend on CBS Doubt. I played Carucci's best friend in Claws on season 1 of Claws. And then, of course, made an appearance on Transparent and a few other things. And then finally led to Pose in American Horror Story.
Wow, that's just, I will tell you, that's amazing. And I think a lot of us can resonate with your journey not being a straight line, right? There's a lot of, you know, ins and outs. And I also love that you know, chose to kind of highlight the power and the impact of authenticity when you got to that place in the roles that you were playing, that you were showing up authentically, and just what that meant about how
Well,
you.
I'll tell you, so much so that there was a scene in Her Story that actually the actual part got cut, but there was a moment where Paige is trying to tell her friend Violet about the date that she had with the man, and the fact that she didn't disclose to him at dinner time. And, you know, the friend's like, oh, you're talking about this date and it sounds like it went great. So why are you down, or why do you sound down about it? And Paige says, well, I didn't disclose. I was right there. I was going to disclose, but I just wanted to be a girl on a date. And they said, cut. Okay, great. Let's do it again. And we did it again. And I was like, I just want to be a girl on a date. And about the third or fourth time, I broke down into tears saying it, because it hit me in a place where I wasn't just sort of acting it, I was feeling it.
Yeah.
And that is the place when we can connect to that space where so many of us know what that's like, especially as trans women. I don't want to have to worry about when is that bubble going to burst. I just want to be a girl on a date.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And, you know, you haven't just connected with your authentic self in just your acting as an amazing actress, but you're also connecting as a business owner and as a trans business owner. And as a trans business owner, I am so inspired when I see others like yourself excelling in your craft. And I would love for you to share a little bit with the audience about TransTech social enterprises. Like, what do y'all do? What kind of services do you offer? I know that you elevate those who are most marginalized in the community. So share a little bit about that with us.
Yes. You know, in essence, TransTech is an online and offline community of LGBTQ plus job seekers, workers, people who are currently employed, as well as our allies. And what we do in this space is we understand that technology can be a catalyst at the intersection of transition. And for some folks, the folks that we center, trans people, especially Black and brown trans folks, there are a lot of barriers and challenges for them and for their transitions, and that we know where technology can actually assist those things. It can make navigating the job market a lot easier when you have access to different networks, to trainings and job opportunities. So what I used to have an office for TransTech in 2015 in Chicago. And, it was great because it was like basically a co-working space where folks could come together and work on projects or get on the computer and do a training on lynda.com, which is not lynda.com anymore. It was bought by LinkedIn Learning. And, but when it got to a point, because it was so hard for me to raise funds, it got to a point where I just couldn't afford to pay for the office anymore. And as I was raising money, my donors and even just the events and things like that, no one was really interested in hearing money being raised from my salary. So I never took a salary. So what for me it ended up being is me utilizing every ounce of my privilege for my community, knowing that, okay, temporarily I was going to take not only a cut, because obviously I wasn't taking a salary, but I was taking a hit. My credit score took a hit. My current, my standard of living, sometimes I was, Precious Brady Davis in Chicago, she allowed me to sleep on her sofa at times, and she was a new in a studio apartment. And when I wasn't sleeping there, I was sleeping in my office, in that Chicago office underneath my desk, and then getting up in the morning and going to the gym and working out and showering at the gym. So there was a lot of sacrifice that went in on the early days, and I still, there's a lot of sacrifice, but I just have a certain kind of wealth, a knowledge of a wealth that I have on the inside. And I try to teach people how to manifest that wealth in their environment. And that comes, sorry about that. And that comes through basically, we have some folks who, let's say, because they transition later in life, they had access to maybe college or a work history and jobs and things like that. But maybe due to a very oppressive job market, they've lost some confidence. Then we have some folks who are, who transition right away because they were in such marginalization. They were like, you know what? I ain't got nothing to lose. I'm already homeless or disowned by my family or all these things. I have nothing else to lose and everything to gain. And so they may have transitioned early, but because they're in those earlier phases of transition, getting into companies and, finding those opportunities sometimes can be hard for them as well when they don't have their documentation set up right or that affirms who they are. So TransTech really is this community where you can enter from wherever you are in your stage of transition. Maybe you're just getting released from incarceration. Maybe you are a cis mother of 5 who is now divorced and needs to start a new career. Or maybe you're a trans woman, again, that needs to build her skills. Here we understand that technology can help us all, but understanding each of the layers of marginalization that are there so that when we get resources, they go first to the people who need the most.
Yeah, I love, Angelica, that you are meeting everybody where they are, and people are at different places in their journey, right? But you've been very intentional to position yourself to meet folks where they are and to remove the barriers that are, significant to them. And you and I both know, more than I, that the TGNC NB community of color, especially Black trans women, are the most marginalized in the LGBTQ plus community. So I wanted to ask you, and I wanted to thank you as well for being vulnerable and sharing about your vocational journey, because a lot of times folks look at, Angelica Ross, the successful Angelica Ross, and they don't know the backstory, right? So I really appreciate you being vulnerable about that. But
Well,
it,
it's not just vulnerable. I have to tell you that I've developed a program called My Personal PhD,
okay,
because because I don't have a bachelor's degree. I don't have a formal education. I am formally educated. I just don't have the degree. I went
okay,
to college. I did as much as that I could do. But what I don't want for anyone else to feel a deficit when they don't have a degree or when they don't have certain things. That's why I'm so open about it. But I'm more open about it because not only is it not a deficit, it's actually an opportunity for you to understand that you need to curate your own curriculum. And
I
that
love
sometimes includes college, and sometimes that are video tutorials, it's books, it's different teachers and mentors, but you can put together a life of success and curate your own path and curriculum.
I love that. So can I ask you to be a little bit more vulnerable with us and
Of course.
share with us a little bit about, what kind of challenges do you face moving through the world today as a Black trans woman, and what would you recommend that we do to push back on the epidemic levels of violence that Black trans women are experiencing in our culture today?
So here's the reality. The reality is I'm famous now. I have financial stability. I have networks. I have access. I have privilege. And at the end of the day, I'm still a Black trans woman that understands that my privilege will not protect me. Sure, it protects me for the moment, being in, the apartment that I'm in Marina del Rey. And, I'm typically, the way I travel and the different things, I'm in a more privileged lane. But what happens is that there are many times when I'm just traveling through the world, and many people don't know who Angelica Ross is. They don't watch, not everybody watches Pose or American Horror Story. Not only that, but there's many times when I don't have a hired hair and makeup person for the day. So when I am just left to my own devices, which again, okay, I'll own, I am kind of cute without all the things, but still, what happens is when I'm walking in the world, I'm very confident in who I am, which means I don't try to lighten. Maybe sometimes I can speak at a higher, different level in my voice, but most times I'm so grounded in my voice that my voice might, clock me sometimes. Most times it's actually clocking me as, aren't you Angelica Ross? I know that voice from anywhere. Like, so most people clock me in that way now, for my voice is like really recognizable. But before, people be like, so I've had moments where I was coming from a major like photo shoot where I'm on doing, I'm the star, I'm with these photographers and hair and blah blah. So I'm leaving the photo shoot. And as I'm leaving the photo shoot in New Jersey, I have to walk through a group of guys. And I'm looking just like, almost like I'm looking right now. And I just hear them saying, wow, she's beautiful, what have you, as I'm trying to walk up and walk through. But then as I'm walking through, someone says, that's a dude. That's a man. And now I'm not in a black car. I'm not in first class, and I'm not in some high-rise building. I'm on the streets. So now I'm vulnerable to the same transphobia and misogyny. And all I could do was just keep walking. My body tensed up, but I just had to act like I didn't hear what they were saying, or I was unbothered by what they were saying. So I know that my privilege won't protect me. I know that I still have to fight, because women, period, cis and trans, come in all shapes and sizes and all tones. And when I am fighting for trans women, I know I'm fighting for all women.
I love that you there at the very end of your comments, you expanded the width, breadth, and depth of what the trans experience looks like. There's a saying in the community, when you've heard one trans person's story, you've heard one trans person's story.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
So to understand that, you know, there's a width, breadth, and depth to our existence, right? And to understand that is the case, I appreciate you bringing that point up, because a lot of folks don't know what they don't know, and
They
until
don't.
they start, sitting down across the table from someone that has a different lived experience than them, and they start getting to know them, and they say, okay, now I understand this a little bit. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
I want to also ask you, I think you've emerged in your vocational journey, and I sense that you're starting to see yourself as a mentor. And I would love to hear your perspective as a successful trans business owner on what you would advise other siblings within the trans community who are looking to step into the workplace or even start their own business as an entrepreneur. What would you tell them today?
Well, I want to point out a few things there that we are in a different job market. We are in a different market, period, a consumer market, and one that is looking, that is trying to be more inclusive. And so you have a lot of companies that have been reaching out to me, that have been reaching out to TransTech and various things where they are looking, they're like, hey, we want to hire trans people. We want to work with trans people. Who do you got? What's going on? And I just want to get folks to understand that you never want someone to hire you because you're trans. You want them to hire you because you are the best for the job. And so what that means is when you are then going through as an entrepreneur, when we are first developing our services and setting our prices, be realistic. And what I mean by be realistic is if you're just starting out, then you need to set your prices to show that. When you get to having 10 and 20 and 30 and now 40 years of experience at, sometimes doing things, then you can very clearly illustrate for folks why your prices are what they are. But until then, don't put so much pressure on yourself to sort of be somewhere you're not. Like, enjoy the beginning stages of entrepreneurship and almost involve your clients, because I'll tell you this, there's clientele for everyone, meaning that as a business owner now, or as someone that does certain services, there are a lot of people who cannot afford my prices. It's just what it is right now. But there are other people who I know that might be a better fit for them. So when I'm talking to different clients and I understand what their budgets are, what their budget restraints are, then I'm able to, and I know that I had clients as well who had smaller budgets, who were willing to work with someone who was newer, who had lower prices, and were willing to kind of adjust and work with and their expectations of what they were getting back. But for me, I always under promise and over deliver. So you want to just get to a place where you are getting good at just the basics, and you build slow. Build your business slow. Understand what an MVP is, which is a minimal viable product, whether that is you as a consultant or as a speaker, your writing services, your marketing services, or graphic design services, whatever it is. Try to hone in on, if you're someone who creates great Instagram videos, or you help people with their specific you're the person everybody goes to for their TikTok videos. TikTok is such a specific thing that you'll find that if you focus on a specific area, you'll be able to expand from there once you reach sort of greatness and you reach this place of word of mouth where everyone's telling everybody about how great your services are. So it's your transness is going to be where your transness is going to come in is when you're successful. Because I say this, just be great at something. Just be great at something. Because once you're great and successful in this area, your advocacy, your platform for advocacy will be built on success. As the most successful cook in Atlanta, you people are interviewing or talking or coming to your restaurant or whatever it is. The you being trans is secondary, but also while they're talking to you, you can also highlight the fact that, and yes, I am trans, and this is what I had to do to, sort of get to the point that I am, and this is how I give back.
Wow. Where were you when I was starting my business? I needed to have some of that insight.
It just, you over time, and it's really just a path for all of us that we figure out. No entrepreneur's path is just like the other. But what I will say to any trans person looking to start their own business, what I want to tell you is your body is your business.
I love that.
And I want you to mind your business. And what I mean by that is don't be afraid to start your own business, because when you're working for other companies and working for other organizations, there are going to be frustration, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be all kind of things. And guess what? When you're working for yourself, you're still going to have frustration, still going to have challenges. I've learned I like the frustration working for myself more than I like the frustrations of working for others. And for me as an entrepreneur, my business started with my body. As someone that was as in sex work, because of where the industry was, where our society was, I had to remove the shame, and I had to mind my business and understand that my body is my business and nobody can judge me for the ways that I build my business.
Whoa. Okay. We just went somewhere on that one. That's fabulous. I what I hear you say is that entrepreneurship is not necessarily a destination, it's a journey, and that
Absolutely.
we are so much more than just trans. And I really appreciate you bringing those points up, because I think a lot of times we lose sight of those things, and we focus so much on our identity, and our identity is just a part that's going along with us, right?
What's the
So,
first part of the challenge, really? Because the thing is once you figure that out, once you get really strong and confident in your identity,
right,
now there's so much more to conquer. So it's like it's really important for folks to get that. So if I tell folks that they're struggling in that space, it's okay.
right.
Let's figure that out. And also let's find some work opportunities that can help you and support you while you're figuring that out.
Love it, love it. So, Angelica, as we wrap up our time together today, we have a lot of organizations, businesses, and corporations on participating in this, listening to your comments here. And, they're focusing on advancing diversity, equity, inclusion in their workplace. They're looking to set themselves up as that elusive employer of choice, right? And so I wanted to ask you, what do you see as the next steps toward a trans inclusive culture, both in the workplace and in our communities? And I also want to ask you, from the perspective of a trans business owner, what would you recommend companies do to engage with TGNC MB business owners?
Absolutely. Okay. So on one hand, I'll say this. When it comes to trans workers as well, I see a lot of times that trans people are usually uh, kind of kept in lower level positions. So you see them in either outreach positions in nonprofit, you see them in, general level positions, and not in management, director, or executive level positions. And when you understand trans people or the trans community at large and understand the barriers that that community has faced, then what you understand is there are some Angelica Rosses out there who did not get to go to school for business, or who did not get to, finish college, or didn't get to access to certain things, but they have a strong business sense. They have, if they were just let in the room or knew what it was like working at an office or working with teams, with having deadlines and having mentorship, that maybe they would have an opportunity to show how great they are and that they can actually do the job. So sometimes you have to realize that the scales have been tipped, and use your company or your opportunities to tip it back. So what I say that a lot of times I would love to see folks including trans people at all levels of, so mentoring people who are executives. Maybe they are running their own businesses and collaborating in a way where there's like an executive mentorship program. Maybe the executives take under a trans or a GNC executive under their wing and spend, have once a week with them in the office, or whether it's virtually or whether that's just mentorship. But I think an investment at every level And what that could easily look like is just doing a workshop through TransTech for executives, for managers, for, different folks to get those skills. And then when it comes to entrepreneurs, it's understanding that there is a spectrum, especially when it comes to trans business owners, of what we're able to do and deliver, what our capacities are. Sometimes there's an expectation on trans business owners as if we have the same sort of tools that some of these bigger companies or companies with more stability and money have. And sometimes we do have access to that, but I think it's more so about not judging one trans company against another and understanding if you truly are about that life and about that business, then you're willing to work with trans business owners, because as long as they're showing up and looking to deliver, I think there's a relationship that comes out of us working together that creates the results that we're looking for. So I would just say, just like with any business, know that some folks have been in business a couple years and some folks have been in business 10 years. And just to manage those expectations in ways that doesn't devalue trans people for the lack of education or certain experiences that they have. And hopefully you can value their lived experience and the work experience that they have been able to accumulate.
I love that. I love that. So let me ask you, I'm going to go off script a minute. I want to ask you, is there anything that you feel compelled to share with the audience that we haven't covered here in this conversation together? Something that's just burning in your heart that you feel like needs to be said?
Yes, absolutely. Right now, there's a Black trans woman who is just sitting on my heart right now. Her name is Tony Michelle, and she's a Georgia resident who has a nonprofit, SNAP, Solutions Not Another Punishment. And she's also worked really hard with helping to decriminalize, cannabis and decriminalize sex work and things like that. And for me, as an actor in Hollywood, so often I hear people refer to Georgia and Atlanta as like the Black Hollywood, because so many of our stars are there and able to thrive there. But I don't want us to be disillusioned, because in the real Hollywood, people aren't getting arrested for marijuana. Matter of fact, they have cannabis dispensaries that look like Apple stores. And there are opportunities for folks to become entrepreneurs even in that lane. So I am definitely hoping to work with Georgia to not only decriminalize, but to bring the business aspect to the side, and to give the folks who have been really most affected by the criminalization, Black and brown folks who have been imprisoned or who have been fined, who have lost livelihood over this. We need to give them grants to have equity in the in the recreational marijuana industry. So if I just want to see us decriminalize life in Georgia. I want to see us stand up to the voter suppression and stand up to the outright anti-Blackness and racism that's in our policy. Governor Kemp, we all watched as he stole that election. So it's on my heart to uplift Black and brown trans leaders. Because we don't always get the platform, we don't always get the resources or the opportunities.
Well, and I want to thank you for stepping on this platform and owning it today, because you have done just that. And again, so impressed and inspired by your visibility. We can't thank you enough for you sharing your time and energy with Out Georgia Business Alliance and our summit attendees today. You're such an inspiration for our community, and know that we are all leaving here today more informed and inspired thanks to your leadership and advocacy. So thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you. And you can definitely count me in as a friend in the movement without Georgia. Like I'm here for real. Now, I'm not just on screen, but I'm in real life here for the movement.
And we're going to hold you to that, and we're going to connect. I promise you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.